Okay, Chair, we're live.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Charlotte. Good evening and welcome to the North Strategic Neighbourhood Forum. The forum is made up of elected members of the council. I am Councillor Bowerman, Chair of the North Strategic Neighbourhood Forum. This is a public meeting and is being webcast to the public. Members of the public watching the meeting can submit questions to the forum throughout the meeting using the form on the right or below the webcast, depending on your device. Only questions relating to items on the agenda will be accepted. You can find the agenda available to download underneath the webcast. When submitting your question, please leave your name and the agenda item or subject matter that your question relates to. At the end of each item, members of the forum will ask questions, followed by any questions that have been submitted from members of the public. Before we begin, could I please ask that everyone mutes their microphones when not speaking, in order to reduce background noise and interference. Please can members ensure their video camera remains on for the duration of the meeting. Thank you. And we'll go to item 1, which is the apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies, Charlotte?
Not received any, Chair, no.
Thank you. Item number 2 of the minutes, receive the minutes of the meeting from the North Strategic Neighbourhood Forum held on the 20th of January 24. They've been accepted. Item 3 is the Ashton Market update, and we have our officer Damien Cutting with us this
Thanks, Chair.
You're welcome. Are you giving this report then, Damien?
I am, yeah. I'm going to show some slides if that's okay, Chair.
Yes, wonderful.
Okay. Make sure I've got this right. Can everybody see that?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah, so good evening, everybody. My name's Damien Cutting. I'm the Economic Growth Lead at Tameside Council. I'm the lead officer responsible for overseeing the delivery now of Ashton Market Square. And I say delivery because that's the kind of stage we're at now. Over the last couple of years, we've been consulting on the regeneration of the town centre and specifically Market Square and the Market Hall and the area around. A lot of people will be aware that we secured £20 million of Levelling Up Fund back in 2021, which is, fantastic for the town. We've now got the long-term plan for the town centre, which is an additional £20 million. And a town board has recently been established and will meet in the next couple of weeks in order to discuss the proposals around the long-term plan. But I'm here to talk about Ashton Market Square and provide an update in terms of where we're at from the last neighbourhood forum that I attended. So I think this is just a reminder for everybody, just in terms of the ambition, really, with Ashton Market Square. It's a significant regeneration scheme, which involves the comprehensive redevelopment of the Market Square area. So we'll be removing all existing infrastructure, including the market infrastructure that's there at the moment, and that includes the fixed stalls and the kiosks, if you like. And we'll be relocating the temporary market to Fletcher Square and around the Market Square area while the construction works are going on. So just to give you a bit of an overview, if you like, of some of the kind of key principles of the Market Square redevelopment, we'll be looking at installing quite a large-scale canopy and a cover for the market, the outdoor market. And underneath the market, there will be 10 brand new kiosks. And there'll be an additional kiosk as well for a staff toilet for market traders and a storeroom. We'll have Market Square pitches for the traders. So there won't be any kind of fixed infrastructure like there is at the moment. Market traders will be bringing their own equipment, or there'll be a store and a loan of some of the council equipment, things like tables and benches and chairs and things like that. So the 10 kiosks that we've got, we did undertake an expression of interest exercise with some of the existing kiosk tenants. Not all of them have been successful, but those who haven't have been offered alternative locations to trade. And with the public realm, I don't know if anybody's seen Wellington Road, the development that's just been delivered, the public realm development that's just been delivered there. But that's a really, if you haven't been, I would suggest that you go and take a look at it. But that ultimately will be a lot of the materials that we'll be using for the hard paving. So really high quality, porphyry material, and a lot of the street furniture will be very much high quality too. A lot of green infrastructure will be incorporated into this scheme through new tree planting and plants, as well as informal play, if you like, for children. But it'll just be a lovely environment, a lovely square for people to spend time in a high quality environment. And it really will encourage kind of new visitors into the square as well, which is really the ambition of this scheme. And I think you can see from the bottom right image there, we're really looking to kind of promote the nighttime and evening economy in the town. So a lot of the kind of kiosks, if you like, will be incorporated around food and drink. And we're also looking at proposals to improve the offer of the market hall itself, particularly around that food and drink and event space. So just to give you a bit of an idea in terms of some of the concepts and the designs for the scheme, the dotted line that you can see there is the edge of the canopy. So when I showed you these images, it does look quite large, and it is a large canopy. There's no getting away from that. But it does only cover that half of that inner market, inner square, if you like. And the infrastructure that will sit under that will be 10 kiosks. There'll be one large kiosk that you can see from the top left, and then there'll be a series of smaller kiosks as well, and as well as that staff toilet that I mentioned. The colour palette that you can see at the top left there, I've seen some of the materials for this that will be used on the kiosk. They're really attractive, and the colour scheme there that you can see is a bit of a nod to the traditional market that was once in the town centre, and it was the if you all remember, it was the red, the yellow, and the blue rooftops of the market stall. So we thought it was important to bring some of the heritage of that previous market into this new scheme as well. And I think the designs that you can see there really give you a feel for the kiosks in terms of the internal kind of fit out that we're looking at, particularly around that kind of food and drink element, but also how people will interact with it. So there'll be hatches on both sides that allows access for the trader to operate out of different angles of those schemes. So in terms of the temporary market, we're looking at a location around Fletcher Square, and I'll come on to that kind of option in a moment in terms of how we've got to that decision. But we're looking for the temporary market to operate throughout the construction. So from June 2024 this year until around the August time in 2025, so around a period of 15 months. What I would say is that there's been no ideal scenario for the temporary market, but we've done our best to try and accommodate individual trader needs and to find them a space that they feel that would offer them the benefit of continuing trading through the construction period. From our point of view, there's no planning requirement, so the permission for the temporary market is covered through the General Permitted Development Order. But there are some complexities around the relocation that we've had to overcome over the last few months, particularly responding to trader preferences. So in the discussions with traders, we've been learning about what their kind of ambitions and what their needs are as a market trader, the logistics and the practicalities, so the utilities, the drainage and the power that's needed. Budget, which is always important in these schemes. So we have a budget of around 125,000 for the temporary market. The variance in market traders throughout the week as well has also been a challenge, and I'll come on to that in a second. And capacity constraints as well, in terms of the space that we've got to play with. Obviously, a lot of Market Square is going to be hoarded for the construction of the main work. So trying to find a suitable space that can accommodate enough capacity to deliver a temporary market has also been something we've been looking at. So in terms of the operation of the temporary market, it will operate differently to the current arrangements of the outdoor market. So currently it operates over 7 days a week, which does provide a diluted offer through that week. Now, we find that markets across the country just don't operate across 7 days a week anymore. So it just makes sense to reduce the number of market days. The market does operate at a loss. So in 2023, 2024, there was a £64,000 loss. So we'll be looking to try and turn the fortunes of the outdoor market around going forward. And the number of traders ranges from an average between 10, sometimes less. I know in the winter months or when the weather's particularly poor, the number of traders does decrease even below 10. But obviously on the summer days and when it's a bit warmer and it's a bit more pleasant, the number of stalls does increase to around 60. And that also varies dependent on the time of year as well. So the operation of the temporary market going forward, we're looking at a more strengthened, a more concentrated number of trading days. The days we're considering are Tuesdays and Saturdays, and we have had some initial feedback from the traders on this, and they've indicated that Fridays should also be added to the temporary trader days. We are probably going to keep it for Tuesdays and Saturdays at the moment, but we'll see. We'll see if demand allows us to increase that number of days. The Sunday tabletop market will be relocated to Hyde for a temporary period before returning back to Ashton Town Centre. We already have an existing programme of specialist markets, and we'll be looking to grow that through the construction period, but also into the new scheme as well. The capacity will be around 30 to 35 pitches. So we might not be able to accommodate all traders on those busier market trader days. We do have Hyde Market as well, so we'll be offering traders the opportunity to trade at Hyde Market if there isn't that opportunity to trade within Ashton. But we really will try and respond to that and be flexible with the capacity throughout that construction period. And if the demand's there, we'll do everything that we can to make sure we can provide pitches for those traders. So in terms of the first option we looked at, I mentioned that we've decided on Fletcher Square, but I'll explain in terms of why we initially discounted Fletcher Square. And a lot of that was related to the capacity constraints within Fletcher Square. We have delivered previous events over recent months, like Friday in the Square in Fletcher Square. So we know that a market type offer can be delivered in that area. But when we started to put the tracking of the vehicle movement from market traders within this, which is that red and blue line that you can see from north to south on the scheme, we realised that it was becoming a bit of a health and safety risk, that there's a lot of pedestrian movement in that area, but also that vehicle tracking and those vans of the market traders will get quite close to some of those market stalls. So we have still decided on Fletcher Square, but on a reduced capacity. But I'll run you through some of the other options that we looked at as well, because we did consider a number of different options for the temporary market. So the second option we looked at was Old Cross Street Car Park. And those of you who were around at the time will remember when the indoor market hall burnt down in 2004, the indoor market was relocated to Old Cross Street Car Park. There were a number of pros with this, mainly related to the limited disruption from the construction. So the main construction works would be taking place in Market Square. This would be situated away from that. It was good access for traders. There was a precedent already set there with the Phoenix Market back in 2004. There would still be some car parking space accessible, and this option would allow us a higher capacity for trader numbers. So what we'd be looking to do with this option is relocate the existing market infrastructure onto the Old Cross Street Car Park. Although we did discount this option for a number of reasons, it was mainly related to trader buy-in, and actually we felt that it would be a real struggle for market traders to continue trading through the construction period in this location. It is off pitch, even though it's still quite central to Ashton Town Centre, it's still quite a way away from the market hall and the footfall that generates. And also, we'd still be looking to locate some of the kiosks within Fletcher Square. And we just felt that the outdoor market provision on Old Cross Street Car Park was too far away from that particular area of Fletcher Square. So that option was also discounted. The third option that we looked at was the former Wilco unit in Tameside 1. So we know that Wilco went into administration last year and they vacated that unit. So we did look at that unit. It actually works quite well as a temporary market option. So you can see from the sketch there, we did a design in terms of where the pitches for the markets would go inside, and we also allowed overspill onto the outside area of that Wilco unit as well. But we did discount this option, and it was primarily down to cost, and that cost associated particularly with the utilities of running a unit inside when you've got electrical costs, business rates liability, and facilities management costs. As you can see at the bottom there, even without the facilities management cost, we were looking at around £610,000, which is quite a significant cost and well over the budget. So that's mainly why that option was discounted. So the preferred approach that we've taken is to relocate the temporary market into Fletcher Square. but it'll be on much reduced capacity, so there won't be as many pitches in that area. But as you can see, we've identified pockets around the Market Square area, primarily outside the Wilco unit. So when we showed you on that previous plan, there was that option of outspill from the Wilco unit. We still think that's a really good location for some of the market traders to pitch up their trade on those 2 market days. Warrington Street as well, we've identified as a potential location. We all know it as Windy Alley, so obviously on those particularly windy days and wet days, that might not particularly be an option. But what we've tried to do is just identify pockets around the town centre. One of the recent ones, which is actually not on this plan, and something that we're considering as well, is maybe the new scheme on Wellington Road and whether that could accommodate some pitches. But mainly that could be around those kind of specialist programmes. We do a lot of youth markets, a lot of vinyl fairs, and those kind of specialist markets. So that could potentially be an option that we could look at as well. But I thought what we'll endeavour to do is be as flexible as we can, as we possibly can with market traders through this construction period. We know it's going to cause a lot of disruption, for the period of time while the construction goes on. What we're trying to do is ensure that traders are kept informed, that we listen to them, but also that they understand that the ambition that in 15 months' time, we're going to have this fantastic new scheme which will attract traders back into the area, more people, a wider demographic, and new visitors to the town as well. So their business will benefit and thrive from that as well. It will be disruptive, but we'll be doing everything that we can to minimise that disruption throughout the construction period. So in terms of mobilisation, like I said, it's all about delivery now. We're getting to that stage where we're going to be on site very soon. People might have seen kind of various bits of work going on over the last couple of months. That's mainly been around kind of ground investigation work, so trying to find out what's underground there in Market Square. The kiosks, the new kiosks, we've appointed a construction company called White Crate Limited. So they have constructed and fabricated kiosks around the country. I don't know if anybody's been to the Lower Market in Altrincham, but they fabricated those kiosks. I don't know if anybody went to Hatch in the centre of Manchester. White Crate were responsible for manufacturing those. And they've got a number of other schemes around the country. So this is right up their street in terms of the type of kiosk that we're looking at. The canopy and the public realm. So there'll be a second contract for the canopy and the public realm that sits beneath that canopy. We're currently out to a procurement exercise at the moment. We've completed stage 1. We've had 3 submissions back. We're in the process of reviewing those submissions, and we'll be taking either one or more of those contractors through to the second stage, which will be a negotiation stage on that contract. So we want to make sure that we're obviously getting value for money for this scheme, and we're getting the right contractor on board. So that's the stage that we're going through at the moment. The remaining public realm work, so everything outside of that blue line that you can see there, that will be delivered by the council's engineering service. And we've been having a number of meetings with the council engineers over the last few months around the delivery of this scheme. So we're mobilising the engineering team. They delivered the recently completed Wellington Road scheme. We think there might be an opportunity to maybe have a look at Market Avenue as a scheme that we could bring forward maybe slightly sooner. We've got some materials that are left over from the Wellington Road scheme that we think we might be able to use on Market Avenue, which is great if we can get moving on that scheme sooner rather than later. But as you can see, everything is mobilising now. Everything is leading up to the start of the construction on site in June this year. So in terms of the next steps, comms is going to be a huge element of this scheme now going forward. We want to make sure that enough people know about it, enough people know what to expect when they're coming into the town centre. So there will be disruption. There'll be a lot of hoardings. There'll be probably a bit of noise from the construction vehicles and the diggers and the contractors on site. So we're not hiding away from that. It is going to be quite disruptive, but we'll be doing our very best to make sure people can find their way in and around the town. So we're looking to speak to Tameside College around the hoardings and the design for the hoardings, so that we can work with some of the students there in getting some of their designs up on the hoardings. We're also looking to promote the existing market offer. So the market is open for business. It will be open for business throughout the construction period. We want as many people to come into the town through the construction period and just realise that whilst it might look disruptive over those kind of next 12 to 15 months, it's realising that ambition of what we're looking to achieve at the end scheme, which is ultimately that kind of comprehensive ambition and redevelopment of Ashton Market Square. So there will be a lot of activity, probably between now and June time, as we start to mobilise the contractors. The temporary market will be looking to get that set up. So we'll be undertaking some ground investigation works around the utilities with United Utilities and Electricity North West to make sure we've got the right utilities in there. Because we will be installing 5 of the kiosks within that Fletcher Square area in June time. So there will be a fixed provision of those kiosks. Those kiosks will then be relocated under the new scheme, and another 5 new kiosks will be added to that scheme as well. So we'll have 10 kiosks in total. It will be operational from June 2024, which is around the time that the main construction works are starting within Market Square as well. As I've already mentioned, Wellington Road is now complete. I think it looks fantastic. If you've not been down there in front of the college, please go down and take a look. There's a little bit of planting that we've got to finish, but apart from that, the scheme is very much complete. And I think, like I said, it just gives you a really good idea of the palette and the quality of the materials within that scheme that we're looking to bring into the Market Square scheme as well. And we've recently established the Ashton Town Board, which will seek to deliver the long-term plan for town, which is that additional £20 million that I spoke about over the next 10 years. And a chair, Phil Brown, has been appointed to lead that piece of work going forward. So it's really exciting for Ashton. A reminder, we've got the £20 million of levelling up fund. We've got the £20 million of the long-term plan, which is brilliant. It's an endowment style payment. So it's kind of spread over that 10 years, if you like. So it's not just about the short term for Ashton, it's about that longer term. You'll have heard that there's a mayoral development zone being established for the town centre, which incorporates that core of the town centre, St Petersfield around Ashton Old Baths, and the Ashton Moss area as well, which we've recently had a development strategy approved by the Executive Cabinet as well. So it's a really exciting time for Ashton. I hope you agree, and I look forward to taking any questions that anybody has.
Thank you very much, Damien. It is exciting times, as you said. I think we're all looking forward to it, actually. So it's great. So any questions or comments of Damien, anyone? Yes, Councillor McLaren.
Yeah, hi there. Thanks a lot, Damien. I'm a big fan of yours and what you're doing there. I agree completely with the scheme on Wellington. It looks fantastic and all that's great. So it's very, very positive. So well done. Just got a couple of quick questions. One of them's a bit techie. What type of contract are you using to procure the 3 separate contracts? I don't need chapter and verse, just the headings, please.
Yeah.
And the second thing is, what would you see as the 3 top risks to you not starting in June?
Good questions. Yeah, so the contractors, we're obviously going through the council's regulations in terms of procurement. So we're using Star Procurement to support us with the procurement exercises. We're using the Northwest Construction Hub in order to appoint the contractors. We've used that for the White Crate scheme for the kiosks, and we're also using it for the canopy contractor as well. So it's obviously a renowned kind of framework that we're looking to use. The 3 submissions that we've had are very good submissions. We feel good value for money as well. I should mention as well in that the kiosk did come in under budget, which was great news for us. We're still to review the commercials on the submissions for the canopy contract. I had a quick look at them yesterday, and they look quite good. But our consultant team and our project management team, who have got more kind of skills and expertise at reviewing those types of submissions, will be doing that on our behalf over the next week. Your second question in terms of a delay for June.
The three key risks, basically. What do you think they are? The top 3
key risks. I would say procurement is a risk. It can take a lot of time. Not only do we have to obviously correctly follow procurement regulations, we also have to get the correct internal governance sign-offs for them as well. And obviously we're approaching the pre-election period, and we've got the elections coming up. So that can be a challenge in terms of getting the correct sign-offs in a timely manner, so we can get these construction firms on board. I would say a second risk would be, and it might be something that's out of our hands, but maybe a delay in the delivery of the kiosks as part of the temporary market. If there's any issues with the fabrication, which we don't envisage there will be, there could be a delay in terms of the delivery of those kiosks, but that's not a concern for us. The reason being is because the existing kiosk traders would just continue to trade in their kiosk until their new kiosk was ready for them to move into. The third one, I suppose I'm going to kind of pull the force majeure card here in that, we just don't know really. This is a huge, significant development scheme. We're obviously in a world where the economic climate is very much up and down at the moment. I think in terms of the costings for the scheme, I think we're on track, particularly as the kiosks have come in under budget as well. But I think it's the unknown. We've still got some ground investigation works to do, and you never know what you're going to find until you kind of dig down and see what's going on below the ground. So I would say those are the three main risks. But what I will say is that, to be honest, it's actually going really well. I think it's running quite smoothly. We've got a very, very good experienced consultant team, from the project management down to the designers, that have done these schemes time and again. The consultant team we're working with have delivered the public realm scheme in Altrincham town centre and other town centres around Greater Manchester. So they give me a lot of confidence in delivering this scheme in a timely manner.
Thank you. Keep up the good work.
Cheers.
Thank you, Damien. Thank you, Councillor McLaren. Any other comments or questions from councillors? No? Well, can I just say thank you very much, Damien, for coming this evening.
Councillor Howard's got his hand up, sorry. Councillor Bowerman.
Yes. Who was it with the hand up? I can't see it on my screen.
It was me. It was me, Joyce.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Councillor
no
Howard.
worries.
Go ahead. My apologies.
Hi, Damien. Thanks for that presentation. It was really good. I'm interested with the current extreme weather we're getting. Would that not be added to the risks of delivery?
It potentially could be, but to be honest, the programme that we've got incorporates the winter months and the autumn months, which you can kind of get rain and downpours throughout the time of year. But we are experiencing fairly mild. I'm not going to go into a climate change debate, but we are experiencing quite mild winters and autumns at the moment. So things like that do help delivery of schemes on the ground. But yeah, weather can play a part in any kind of major construction scheme.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Howarth. Any other questions or comments from anyone? No, I think that's okay then. Well, thank you very much, Damien, for coming along this evening.
Problem.
Exciting, as I say. I think we're all looking forward to it. I'm sure it'll be superb when it's finished. And thanks very much. I'm sure you'll be back again to update us, won't you?
Absolutely.
In the future. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Item number 4 then, we've got antisocial behaviour policy and resilient communities fund. And we have our officers, head of environmental operations. We have Nick Sayers and we have Dave Smith with us this evening. So good evening to you both.
Evening, Chair. I'll just, if I can, I'll just do a quick introduction, really. For those that don't know, I am Nick Sayers, Head of Community Safety and also Head of Operations and Green Space. And just before Dave goes through the presentation will provide an overview of the draft antisocial behaviour policy, which covers various areas. But in addition to the draft policy, we have recently undertaken a review of the service, and this is the first ASB policy. And policies are important, but equally so at the internal working procedures which sit behind these policies. And therefore, we've reviewed and amended our internal working procedures and refreshed the website as well, which is a lot more user-friendly. So if I could, Chair, if I just hand over to Dave and he can go through the presentation.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Nick. Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Nick, and thank you, Chair, and thank you all for the opportunity to present this to you this evening. I'm just going to share my screen. Presentation. Try that again. Did that come up with my calendar then?
Yes, you did.
Bear with me. Apologies. Try again. That might be better.
Oh, that's great.
Brilliant.
Lovely.
Okay.
Thanks, Dave.
Right, okie dokie. Yeah, so I'm going to speak to you this evening about the antisocial behaviour policy that that we're looking to adopt through the governance process. But just before we do that, I just thought it'd be worthwhile revisiting actually what antisocial behaviour is, because it is a term that gets used a lot, but I think it's important that we remind ourselves that it is a thing that is defined in section 2, paragraph 1 of the Antisocial Behaviour Crime and Policing Act 2014. And what it says is that antisocial behaviour is conduct that has caused or is likely to cause harassment, alarm or distress to any person. Conduct capable of causing nuisance or annoyance to a person in relation to that person's occupation of residential premises, or conduct capable of causing housing-related nuisance or annoyance to any person. So by its own very definition, we can see that it's a very wide definition. We kind of view antisocial behaviour in three strands, really. We have the personal element of that, so incidents that deliberately target an individual or a group of people rather than a community. So they may be things like intimidation, harassment, those type of kind of really personal matters. We've then got nuisance, which is incidents that affect the wider sphere, the community, rather than an individual. This is when an act, thing or person causes the community trouble, annoyance or suffering. So, for example, there'll be things like drug or substance misuse, vehicle-related nuisance, and animal-related problems. And then we've got the environmental element, and that's incidents where individuals or group impact their wider surroundings, includes environmental damage. So that would be things like criminal damage or vandalism, such as graffiti or littering, fly tipping, etc. So they're the kind of three strands that we have in relation to antisocial behaviour. In terms of the powers that exist in the Act, we can see there are 6. Under the previous legislation, there was around 16, 17 different powers, and for the purposes of this Act, they condensed it under the 2014 Act. So the powers were easier to use, really. One of the key things in terms of the Act and the guidance is that there is a clear focus about putting the victim's voice first. It's very victim-centred. And the Act, in terms of those powers you can see there, they provide the police, local authorities, and other agencies the tools and powers to deal with antisocial behaviour. So we've got the power there of civil injunction, criminal behaviour order, public space protection order, community protection notices, dispersal powers and closure powers. It is important to note that while local authority have powers, you can use these powers, as can police, as can social landlords, they're not all open to those agencies. So, for example, a public space protection order, which exists in Ashton Town Centre, is a power that gets utilised by the local authority. In terms of antisocial behaviour, I think it's widely accepted that antisocial behaviour can't be dealt with singularly by one agency on their own. It needs a multi-agency approach to deal with the issues that arise as a result of antisocial behaviour. It can be quite some matters can be quite complex. But there is a statutory duty that's placed on responsible authorities under the Crime and Disorder Act 1998 for the local authority, police, fire and rescue service, probation, clinical commissioning groups or integrated care boards, where they have a statutory duty to deal with antisocial behaviour and the wider crime scene. And that's we achieve that locally through our community safety partnership and the meetings that exist around that. One of the ones I wanted to touch on was the GPOP meeting. Just to explain a little bit about what that is. G. The G stands for the Tameside Division. We are on the Police G Division, and POP is problem orientated policing or partnership working. And what the GPOP meeting is that we have locally is a multi-agency meeting where we as multi-agencies come together to deal with antisocial behaviour being one of those things, repeat demand issues for services, where we look to problem solve issues that arise, so things get highlighted and all partners can feed into this forum. It's not a strictly local authority meeting or a police meeting, but we work together to try and resolve the issues that we have. So just touching on the proposed policy, probably important to note that there isn't actually a statutory duty to have an antisocial behaviour policy. If you think about other worlds, I put my old licensing cap back on and think about the requirement to have a licensing statement. That was statutory duty to have. We don't have that with an antisocial behaviour policy, but we recognise that it is good practice, best practice, to have that policy because it will give reassurance and increase public confidence that we as a local authority with our partners are dealing with instances of antisocial behaviour, and obviously it's one of the council's priorities. The draft policy itself is split into different sections, and I've listed those sections below. I think one of the key things to touch on here would be the ASB case review. There's been reports released over the past 12 months about the importance of the case review process. This is a platform that allows victims of antisocial behaviour to have their cases reviewed if they meet a local threshold, whether or not they've complained to the local authority, to the police, to their landlord, etc. And if there's a dissatisfaction around how that antisocial behaviour complaint has been dealt with, that case review process really puts that victim first, and it gets agencies round the table to develop a plan of action in terms of dealing with instances of antisocial behaviour that people suffer. So just wanted to highlight there, but as you can see, there's a number of topics there that the policy touches upon. In relation to the action taken to date in terms of the formation of the policy, what we've done is we have incorporated the considerations of the government's antisocial behaviour action plan. So that was launched in March of last year. We've also incorporated the considerations of the local government and social care ombudsman's published in focus report, Out of Order, Learning the Lessons from Complaints about Antisocial Behaviour. That report was published in August of last year and has helped us form our policy locally. The draft of the policy has been presented to the Public Engagement Network, and the feedback that we received from that was back in June of last year. That also helped form the policy. And in November of July and then November of last year, we had the draft policy presented to the Place and External Relations Scrutiny Panel. And we attended a further scrutiny committee workshop, which was really, really helpful. And we had recommendations come from that again has helped us in the development of the policy. In terms of governance and next steps, we have a report that's being presented to Executive Cabinet tomorrow, where we are seeking a 12-week public consultation period. Obviously, we'll hopefully have that ratified tomorrow, and we'll have the 12-week consultation period. When that period starts, we shall be writing to each member just to make them aware of the fact that is now live. It's a live consultation for yourselves, and also I would ask that you do send that far and wide within the contacts that you have, because obviously we want to get as much feedback on the policy as we can. And obviously following the consultation period, once that's closed, a further report will be drafted, taking into consideration the feedback that we received from the consultation, with a view to formal adoption of the policy. I just included this slide here just in relation, just to give an indication of the reports that we've received in 2023. Put my teeth back in 2023 in the north. What this informs is there were a total of 63 separate ASB reports that we dealt with as an ASB service, and the pie chart represents the numbers and the report resolution, I should say, in relation to how those complaints were dealt with. I must caveat this by obviously this doesn't incorporate the reports the police have received. This doesn't incorporate the numbers that social landlords deal with, because obviously they have powers to deal with antisocial behaviour as well. These are the ones that we have specifically as a service dealt with. In terms, so that's it, Chair, in relation to the antisocial behaviour policy. Would you like me just to talk briefly just around the Resilient Communities Fund?
Yes, that'd be fine.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dave. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. So the Resilient Communities Fund, very excited. We've launched the application process to this fund throughout the month of March, building on the success of the previous years, really. So I think many of you will have been involved in the Community Inspiration Fund that we ran last year. Just a bit of context in relation to this. This is a fund that is devolved from the Deputy Mayor's Office, comes in the form of a VCSE grant, and has to be spent within the voluntary community sector. So in terms of how we manage this process, one of the terms of the grant is that we have the community voting for what they wish to see in the community project-wise. So we have an application process open at this moment in time, closes on the 29th. We will be sitting as a panel to sift through those projects with a view to having events in the north, south, east and west, where those people who have been successful in terms of the project they have put forward, meeting local criteria in terms of our CSP priorities, the GM police and crime plan, but also the specific terms of the themes that we have for this year. And I'll just very quickly just run through those. That's preventing crime and reducing fear of crime, improving environmental resilience and challenges, reducing antisocial behaviour and empowering communities. So if we get projects proposed to us that meet that criteria from voluntary community sector groups, we will hope that they go through to the events where, for those again who were involved last year, were able to present their project to the communities, and there was a vote that took place to see which projects went and was awarded the grant money. So I have sent that out to, I know I've emailed that to all the members, so they've been aware of that. Obviously, in terms of the events that we'll be having, you'll be notified of them as well. But yeah, very excited to have this fund again this year. And I think, Chair, that is all from me.
Yes, thank you very much, Dave. Yeah, very interesting. I mean, the antisocial behaviour policy will be great. And also some very worthy groups have had the Resilient money last year. So it's an excellent time. So I'll be there at the Ashton one. Any questions or comments? Anyone on Dave's reports? Anybody got anything to say to Dave or ask him? No? Oh, yeah.
Chair.
Councillor Kareem, yes, go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Dave. Very nice presentation. Everything is good. Can I have this CSP's link somewhere, please? One of my group, one of the group in my ward, they can apply for that. Can you send the link on my email, please?
Certainly. Yeah, of course I can, Councillor. No problem at all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Kareem. Any other questions or comments? No, just to say thank you very much then, Dave. Very interesting as always. I'm sure the Resilience Fund will be a success like it was last year. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening to you both. Places for Everyone is the next on the line on the agenda. We've got Simon Pateman, our officer, this evening. Good evening to you, Simon.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen because I have a presentation for you to view.
Thank you.
So can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Okay, so yeah, as you're aware, a large part of the sort of time of the planning team's been taken up with working on places for everyone over the last 10 years. So you know, it gives us a great deal of I guess like professional pride and pleasure to see the plan actually get over the line and be adopted. So the purpose of this evening is just to give you sort of a kind of a speedy run through of the plan and what it means for Tameside. Now we're actually going to be implementing the policies. So I've got a few slides and I'm just going to see if we can nav through them. Okay, so yeah, I mean, basically the presentation is split into a number of sections, a bit of background, policy overview, allocations, and then some other issues, and then a chance for any questions at the end as well. So in terms of context, I mean, the council was one of the first authorities to actually take the plan to full council. Obviously that happened 3 weeks ago now, 5th of March, and the resolution carried at that meeting was to adopt the plan with it coming into effect on the 21st of March. And the reason it had a later date is because obviously there were 8 other districts involved in the process. So actually coordinating 9 districts to have council meetings on the same day is, very challenging in itself. So the decision was that they would select a later date when all the districts, once they'd been to full council, would adopt the plan on the same day. So hence the reason it was on the 21st. And the good news is that all the other districts have now approved the plan. So that's very reassuring, because there was potential for one of the districts maybe not have adopted it. However, that wouldn't have really caused any problems, because the way that the joint plan operates is that if we, Tameside, adopted it as an individual district, it doesn't matter if other districts didn't adopt it. So it was kind of a fairly robust approach, and but luckily yeah, everybody has adopted it now. We are, however, going through a period where there could be a legal challenge, and that lasts for 6 weeks, so up until the 2nd of May. And really is quite a limited range of legal challenges that could be brought forward, and they really have to be around like procedural issues with the plan. So not things about, oh, is it too much housing or whatever. It's more to do with the actual legal requirements of delivering the plan and whether they've been adhered to. So just a quick overview, and I'm not going to go through. You'll be pleased to hear I'm not going to go through all of the policies listed. I mean, the good news is, I mean, it does. Obviously there's a bit of a focus on greenbelt issues and deletion of greenbelt across Greater Manchester, and that's probably the main issue that's created a sort of like the amount of noise around the plan. But it's very important to remember that there's a whole raft of very progressive, forward-thinking policies in the plan, dealing with pretty much every sort of key issue that we need to tackle over the next 15 years. So originally there were 56 policies proposed, 3 of those. So there's 3 of those you might be able to see that are crossed through on the list. Didn't actually make it through the examination process. And if you can't read that, they just, one of them was a sustainable and resilience policy. So that was about resilient places. That one was basically deemed to be not to make it through. And then 2 other policies, one on standards for greener places, and another one on a fairly niche area, which is referred to as safeguarded land, which there wasn't any identified in Tameside, so it actually wasn't really an issue for us. So a lot of the policies have been renumbered because things have obviously been deleted. So luckily all of that's dealt with in the new published version of the plan, and you can cross-reference that because there's an appendix that sets out how the changes have been made. So it's a bit of a technical issue, but an important one to identify. Then we get on to the allocations across the whole of Greater Manchester. So there were, as you can see, a wide range of allocations proposed. 3 of those were in Tameside, Ashton Moss West, Godley Green Garden Village, and south of Hyde. One for wholly employment uses, and 2 of the others for residential. And I'll touch on those a bit later. But I mean, not all the allocations proposed made it through the process either. So there were 2 that actually were deemed by the inspectors that were, reviewing the plan that would, didn't comply with the requirements. One was at Global Logistics in Manchester, and the other one a site which is north of Earlham Station in Salford. There were different reasons for them not making it through, and I won't go into the details of those here. So yeah, just a bit on additions as well. So part of the process, not only were we taking land out of the Greenbelt for development purposes going forward, but we did a thorough review of potential land that could go into the Greenbelt as well. So Tameside, we did pretty thorough approach, identified quite a lot of sites, more than a lot of districts. But the key thing to take away from this, there was 49 additions proposed across the whole of Greater Manchester. But only 19 of those proved to have the exceptional circumstances that they needed to have to be included in the plan. So we've done quite well out of that, and luckily, we did a thorough background job on them. And out of all of those proposed, we proposed 12 in Tameside, and 8 of those have been successful and been included. So we basically put nearly 40 hectares of land into the Greenbelt. Generally, that's land that was, on the edge of the urban area and had policy protection already, but putting it in the Greenbelt gives it a greater degree of protection going forward. And this plan, I mean, this one just sums up the sort of overall impact of places for everyone on Tameside. So obviously the allocations are identified in there. A new Greenbelt boundary, which will hopefully last for in excess of maybe 15 years, so up to 2030, 39 and beyond. And it also, you can see other areas identified. So, for example, these shaded areas, which are sort of different types of land identified for housing or employment uses going forward. So just a bit about the strategy for PFE. So obviously it covers the 9 districts with the exclusion of Stockport, and also there's quite a large part of Oldham which is excluded because it's actually within the Peak District National Park, and they are the planning authority for that area. I think the key things to look at in terms of this is that the map tries to summarize about 100 pages of strategy from the front of the Places for Everyone document. It identifies the key locations for growth. It sets out the spatial strategy in terms of where growth will be delivered, and it points to other parts of the plan where details given, such as certain development corridors, for example. And I guess the key for spatial elements for that, significant growth in jobs and housing, predominantly in the core of the urban area, so around Manchester, Salford, and into the Keys area, and also over into Trafford. That helps to support inner area regeneration around in those sort of locations. And then the key one, which is the arc that's shown across the top of the map, so the sort of large double-ended arrow, that is indicating where we're looking to boost northern competitiveness. And this has been, a significant issue in Greater Manchester for decades, really, is how the south constantly outperforms the north, and how we need to address issues and barriers to growth in the north by delivering better housing, more employment sites, and tackling those sorts of issues. But that's not to say that we're going to ignore the south. We just need to maintain its competitiveness, and we don't really need to emphasize that. It almost looks after itself. So just going to touch on a bit on some of the policies. So the Sustainable and Resilient Places chapter, I think that's, I'm not going to go into the policy detail, but more to say that, these are the policies that are going to help us to tackle some of the, key issues, certainly in, as the borough's declared a climate emergency. So these policies are aimed at delivering more sustainable and resilient places. And then just moving on to touch on allocations, but also looking at the policies around employment. So there's a chapter of the plan which deals with employment policies, and it's the jobs chapter, and that basically reflects what's set out in the GM local industrial strategy, and it does highlight that quite a lot of the jobs are going to be created in the central areas, and that sort of core growth area that I mentioned previously. But I think that's underpinned by an ambition to deliver growth in all parts of Greater Manchester, and certainly if you reflect on that policy on northern competitiveness, then that is absolutely fundamental to helping sort of almost like level up the sort of distribution of opportunity within Greater Manchester itself. So for us in Tameside, we've got one large employment allocation, which is identified on Ashton Moss West. So hopefully you can make that out from the plan. It's the area to the west of the motorway, north of Lord Sheldon Way. Basically, the aim is to deliver a significant quantum of high quality employment floor space in that location. It's highly accessible. It's on the motorway network. It's well related to existing employment areas. It has, unlike a lot of other sites, it already benefits from its own Metrolink stop. So, it has a lot of positives, and we're looking at delivering quite out of the borough supply of employment land that would probably deliver. I think it's about 60%, 70% of all the employment development in the next 15 years. So it is really like quite, such an important site. Hopefully we'll be looking at that coming forward in the next few years. They're just going to touch briefly on housing. So there's a number of policies set out in the housing chapter. And again, these update and bring in some changes which are important from a local perspective, but also kind of update some of the policies we already use. So affordability is a key one. There's no target set for affordability in the plan. I mean, it's basically set down that will be dealt with through the local plan, mainly down to the level of detail that's required for that policy. So the ambition is to deliver a significant uplift in the amount of affordable housing, and that is a piece of work that we'll be taking forward through the local plan, and I'll briefly touch on that later on as well. There are some other key policy changes coming through. So the H3 policy, which will bring forward the nationally described space standards. So there's minimum standards for space that are expected for types and sizes of dwellings. And also the property should be built to accessible and adaptable home standard as well. So obviously that's a key one. There's quite a lot of demographic change happening. There's an significant aging population. You've got significant numbers of people living to well into their 80s and beyond. The idea of that policy is that we don't build houses that can't be adapted. It's the opposite to that. So it actually makes it easier for people to stay in the houses for longer. So there's a lot of benefits in that respect. And then there's also a density policy as well, which looks at principally increasing densities in highly accessible locations. So where you've got good transport infrastructure. So just move on now. So in terms of the actual sites within Tameside that are going to be delivering housing that are allocated in the plan. As I said, there's two, one of which is this one, Godley Green Garden Village, and that's been identified to deliver up to 2,350 homes. And obviously, this is one that's obviously been progressing through the planning system. So there's already an outline planning consent that's granted subject to the Section 106 being agreed on it. However, it will be delivered in conjunction with all the associated infrastructure that's required, transport improvements, and a large amount of open space across the site. Then the next one is a smaller site, which is south of Hyde. This one's identified for about 440 new homes. One of the key benefits of this is that it will allow for the restoration of the Apethorn farmhouse complex, which is Grade 2 star listed farm complex, which is sadly on the Historic England Heritage at Risk Register. So part of the aim of the policy is to facilitate that redevelopment, bringing it back into use, and then actually hopefully getting it removed from the register, which would be a huge benefit. And then just going to touch on greener policies. So there's obviously a sort of considerable focus within Places for Everyone in terms of looking at the sort of natural environment, looking at policies in relation to landscape, green infrastructure, how we protect river valleys, lowlands and uplands, and also down to detailed sort of policies covering urban greening, trees. And probably one of the more important ones that's coming out of it is a policy around biodiversity net gain. So basically, you might have heard about that because it's been a national policy that's introduced. But this one gives sort of more detail in a Manchester specific policy framework. And it's probably important just to highlight one issue around one of the policies, because through the process of the plan examination, it was felt that more detailed guidance was required in terms of the impact on the South Pennine Moors, because a lot of those are a sort of very high level of designation. They're what's called a SAC area. So yes, so basically that policy is looking at sort of making development contribute to protecting those areas, or creating areas that will act to give that capacity, rather than using a sensitive landscape area, which is what the South Pennine Moors is categorized as. Then just quickly, just some of the other policies around, as I mentioned earlier, some of the detailed policies about trees and woodland. So looking at considerably increasing street trees, and also a policy whereby if trees are removed, there would be a requirement for a minimum replacement on a 2-for-1 basis. As I mentioned earlier, there's a policy on biodiversity net gain, and then also the Greenbelt policy, which broadly replaces policies in the UDP. So 3 of the policies in the UDP now cease to be current policy. So we replace that with JPG 9. So that's updating something that was first established back in 1984. So I'm just going to quickly run through these are the Greenbelt additions. So these are the areas that were identified. And I'm going to flick through them really quickly because I realise most of them are outside of Ashton. So we've got Foxplat and Mosley. The one that is in Ashton is at Manor Farm Close up in the north. Then we've got 2 that are in Carbrook, so Cowbury Green and Woodview. And then we've got a number of parcels that make up a sort of corridor between Hattersley and Mottram. So you've got Broad Bottom Road. Unfortunately, they're not in a sensible order. So this one's actually indented at Cemetery Road. Then we've got the other parts to the corridor between Hyde and Mottram. And that is it. So I hope that was helpful, and happy to take any questions. And probably the key thing just to mention before the questions, though, as I can see you're very keen on that front, just that we will be moving on to the local plan. We've already undertaken work on that, which is called Home Spaces Places. And I'm sure we will be back presenting that to you in the near future. Thank you very much.
Very well, thank you very much, Simon. Any questions or comments for Simon? All very interesting stuff, Simon, and very important too, issues. Any questions or comments, anyone?
I think Councillor McLaren has a question.
Yeah, Councillor McLaren, just looking at you with your hand
Yeah,
up.
it was.
Go ahead.
Thank you much, thanks very much, Simon. That was very informative from my point of view. And I'll tread very lightly and very carefully for the purposes of this session. I just know, but genuinely, I want to educate myself. I have a great passion for social housing, and I kind of recoil when the phrase, and I know you have to use it judiciously because it's part of the jargon that you have to use, and affordability. So I'll get off my soapbox for a minute.
Okay.
Which is the best vehicle to apply constructive pressure from your framework documents? Is it the local plan, or is it this plan, in which to try to campaign for social housing to realistically be provided? Because self-evidently there's two areas, Godley Green and South of Hyde, appear to be the only areas where there's going to be any substantial homes built in Tameside. Simple question. I sometimes fall asleep at night dreaming about 20% of all new housing being actual social housing. Now that's only between me and my imagination. How could you realistically try to get this incorporated within Tameside, where they're actually built? And my second part of the question is, you mentioned about minimum spatial standards in this document. Is this just advisory, or do the developers have to actually meet it?
No, good questions. And I think the affordable housing one, it's one we've been grappling with as planners for quite a long time. Rather unhelpfully, as I think you've alluded to, the definition of affordable housing seems to change on a not a weekly basis, but it sometimes feels like that. And I think Places for Everyone doesn't set out a target for affordable housing. It sets out the ambition for affordable housing. Through Home Spaces Places, that is really where we get down to the nitty-gritty of providing the evidence that says, these are the types of social housing, whatever form of affordable housing it is. We might need to segment that down to sort of a bit finer grain in terms of dealing with all the requirements. But realistically, I think it's based on evidence, so we're probably going to need to do some updated evidence around that in terms of sort of breaking down the sort of requirements for affordable housing. And I think that the difficulty with this is always going to come back to viability, and that is the thing that if we're going to take a plan forward that said, for argument's sake, say we want 50% affordable housing, planning inspector inspecting that is going to say, well, how does that affect the viability of your housing, delivery in the borough, for example? And I think it's a question of finding that balance between the two things. But also, we don't know what funding streams are going to come forward to deliver affordable housing in the future. I mean, most affordable housing doesn't come forward as a result of granting planning permission, Section 106 money or whatever it is. It generally comes forward delivery from registered providers in that format. So I hope that goes some way to answering the first question. I think there's sort of evidence-based work for us to do in terms of coming up with the numbers at the end of the day that say, and one thing I probably should have mentioned earlier was in terms of the numbers of houses we're going to deliver in Tameside, the average for the plan period is 485 a year, and it's what percentage of that we think needs to be delivered as affordable. At the moment, it'd be I couldn't even say, because the 15% target that we have at the moment, that only applies to, commercial schemes that come forward. Not obviously schemes that are delivered by RPs are completely different. So, I think it's down to us basically bringing together some more detailed evidence on that, that sets out what we want to deliver in Tameside. And the other question about the minimum space standards, that's now policy. So we did have it as a policy before. So the policy H4 in the UDP, but when we reviewed, planning consents granted, there appeared to be quite a bit of variation in, what was consented, and I think it was because it wasn't actually set out in the policy wording. It was set out in a supplementary guidance, and then the government brought in these minimum advisory not minimum advisory standards, but the minimum space standards. It wasn't really that straightforward for people making decisions on planning applications to say, oh, this is what we should be doing and this is what we should be asking for. But now, it's a hard and fast set of rules. So yeah, that should be a lot more robust.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Councillor McLaren. Any other questions or comments, anyone? Can't see anyone's hand up at the moment. So thank you for that, Simon. The next agenda. Yep. Was there someone else who wanted a question?
No, sorry, that was me just saying that's absolutely fine. Thank you.
Oh,
Chair.
great. Thank you, Simon. Yeah, I'm sure we'll see you again soon anyway with another update.
I'm sure you will. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night to you. Item number 6 is date of the next meeting, which is due to be confirmed. So I haven't got a date as yet. Just want to say to everyone, thank you for your comments. Thank you to the officers this evening and the councillors for their questions and comments. And thank you to Charlotte for facilitating so well as always. And hope everyone has a very nice Easter and see you in the next meeting. Thank you. Good night for now.